So let me catch you up to speed here real quick, because there's been a lot going on in this region while the camera's been off, just because I haven't had any consistent time to do anything. It's just a little here and there, and I've been trying to make as much progress as possible and yeah, be efficient. So here's what's going on. So the new axle housing for the Outlaw are now setting under it, or the front one is, I should say, right there. I did a lot of welding in this region. Got those brackets all fabbed up. Got the shock mounts on from Patrick Engineering. And the new mounts are on back here for the 4-link bars. So all the 4-link tabs are on. They're welded to stay. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hook the shocks up, because I want to make sure they hook to those new mounts okay. And then we're going to run the axle up and down. We got to get sway bar end links welded on. And then I got to figure out what we're going to do for limit straps. So I got to look at that. And yeah, and then we can take the axle housings out, do a little fine tuning. Oh yeah, got to do drive shaft loops. Got to finish the brackets to put those drive shaft loops on. So right here, I don't have the old axle tore apart yet, but this whole loop set up and mounts for the steering have got to be welded on that axle yet. So yeah, lots to do. So, like everything else with this project, found another problem. So our fancy holders that hold these shocks together right here, which consist of 2 exhaust clamps on a piece of flat steel, are too close together now because these mounts are actually spaced out a little bit here. So now I got to unbolt that, and I'll have to re-drill a hole. No big deal, but still frustrating. Alright, so we got the shocks all hooked up, as you see there. Had to undo those brackets. That was kind of a pain, have to re-drill them. Just one other thing, you know. So these tabs here on these Patrick Enterprise shock mounts are actually for the sway bars. Some trucks run dual sway bars, but mine isn't set up. My sway bar is not in the position, being this, my sway bar arms right here are not in the position to where they'll go behind the shocks. This chassis is a little short. Ideally, if you could put your sway bar out here on the chassis, your sway bar could run down in front of that shock, not interfere, and it would hook to those. So those tabs will probably get cut off, cleaned up, while the axle's getting sandblasted. But for now, we need to hook these sway bars right here up to that axle somehow. We need to make some mounts. So I'm going to drop them down here and yeah, see what comes of it. Alright, so I've been working on this thing again, just chipping away at it, little at a time. As you can see, I got the sway bars hooked up this time. So those mounts, if you guys might have been wondering what the deal was, those mounts for the 4-link bars, why I had spare holes in them, I didn't specifically have this planned, but the sway arm is going to actually hook into that top mount right there, and that's going to be super clean because that's already on there. And I think it's going to all clear, so we're going to flex this thing here in a minute, make sure it clears. We're going to pull this axle back out. We got to take the center out of that axle, which means we got to strip this thing down, and we got to mock up those drive shaft loops under this thing, and then that axle is ready to go to sandblast and to get painted. But let's flex this thing real quick, make sure it's going to work. Oh yeah, clears by a mile. These things were actually rubbing the frame here last year, and this year they're going to clear. Everything's going to be cool. So So I actually had to move this sway bar mount from here because the top 4-link bars were touching. I had to cut that out of there. I had to move it from here to up here. I made some new tabs, welded on everything. Got that moved. That's going to be pretty cool, I think. The only thing we're running into is it literally won't travel up far enough without hitting these top mounts to bottom out the shocks. So there's a couple things I can do because I really like how these shock mounts move the angles out. So like I say, it literally won't travel up enough without hitting the frame here, and I don't feel like cutting that frame out and extending it like I could to where this was out in front. So there's only a couple things we can do to correct that. Is we could throw these shock mounts away that we got from Patrick, but I don't want to do that. I really like those shock mounts. Those are nice. So what I'm going to do is I can either run another rubber bumper on these right here for now, which might happen, or we're going to actually space these shock mounts up here down one hole. Vodder's Motorsports, on one of his truck, he's got a spacer made because there's a difference in length of shocks that they run on that truck, and I think I'm going to space them down one hole, which will make those bottom out. It'll all make it work out. We'll still have lowered our ride height a little bit, and we'll have put some more angle on the shocks, which should help with roll when you're going around corners. And yeah, hopefully this all works out. So we're going to keep thrashing on this thing. Got a lot more to do. Got to get this front axle done, and we got to get it spun around, do the rear axle, get it all back together. I have a deadline I want to try to get that done by because I have another project I want to show you guys. But thanks for watching. There'll be more wrenching videos. There's not a whole lot going on outside. I'll try to give you a little in cab here and there, throw some action in what we can, but just going to be a lot of wrenching this winter. So go buy some merch. Thanks for watching the channel. We'll see you guys next time.